So it's just recording me, it's just not recording any sort of sound up there? All right, that's fine. Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 115th season of the New York Browning Society. We have been meeting here for 115 years in the New York City area. Not here, funny enough. This is a first time for us. A lot of first times for this meeting. I'd say typically we have in the last 20 years met at the National Arts Club, and we still have a good relationship with them. And for particular events that we find noteworthy and willing to pay the exorbitant costs that it costs to be at the National Arts Club at this point, we will take that into consideration and continue a good relationship with them. Second of all, we've always met for the majority of our meetings for at least the last 60 years, if I'm not. I think there was an evening meeting back in 1953, if I'm correct. But it's been a long time, and so this is our first evening meeting of the New York Browning Society at 6 o'clock. Whether or not 6 o'clock is the right time for everyone to get together and participate, we'll figure that out together. But we have a very eclectic and delicious schedule for this year. I think next November we're going to be meeting at the National Arts Club for a very interesting talk about Elizabeth Barrett Browning that I think that everyone should come out and see, page 6 especially. So the New York Browning Society, just so you know, was founded in 1907 to study the poetry, life, and times of Robert Browning and his wife Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Our programs reflect the extraordinary diversity of their interests and restless intellects, and also encompasses most of Victorian literature and culture, for the Brownings knew practically everyone in that extraordinary era. The Society also founded the Browning Institute, which saves the poet's Florentine home, Casa Guidi, from commercial development. It's now owned by Eaton House in England. It's a long storied history here of New York and the Brownings. And the one thing that I really want to highlight is that nexus point. The Brownings knew literally everyone, and with their knowledge of the languages and their knowledges of the people of that time, it really brings us to an event like today, because we're going to be studying the works of some very famous translations from other languages that the Brownings themselves would have most likely have been involved in reading, and or they typically like to translate Greek. Agamemnon, Aeschylus, you know, it's a Greek translation for them. No, the microphone is not on. That's just how my voice naturally sounds. Is that a good or a bad thing? Just trying to project a little. So I just want to thank the presenters here and the organizers of this particular event. Claudia Soria is here from the National Translation. She's the co-founder. Let's give her a round of applause. This is a part of the Translation Month, the National Translation Month. We have 4 very gifted speakers and minds that have their works available, their translations available for you to hear tonight. Let's give a round of applause for Annabel Lee, Tom Diagidio, Robert Kramer, and Roberto Mendoza Ayala. But most importantly, we want you guys to check out the nybrowning.org. We want you to become a member. We want your patronage. We want you to support the society. We've been around for so long, and we have such a great, diverse, amazing. All I want is for us to engage in literary discourse, the likes that they haven't seen in New York in a long time. And I think that this venue might be it. And let's give it up for the first meeting of the 115th year of the New York Browning Society. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. So as I understand, we have a very talented actress with us in our midst, former treasurer of the New York Browning Society. Let's give a round of applause for Tandy Cronyn, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Welcome. James has already said what I thought I was going to say. But tonight's event takes its inspiration from the Brownings. Elizabeth and Robert were both able linguists who practiced the art of translation, translating poetry and plays from Italian, German, French, Latin, and ancient Greek, if you please. The program is called 4 Poets and Their Translations, featuring translations of poems from French, Spanish, Italian, and German into English. In the middle of the program, we will have an intermission, and you can have some light refreshments, but let's get started. Our first participant is poet Annabel Lee. In addition to being a poet herself, Annabel Lee publishes poets through her Vehicle Editions Press. She serves on the board of the Poetry Project at St. Mark's. The latest collection of her poems is Minnesota Drift, published by Accent Books of Chester, Vermont. She will present her translations from the French of 20th century poet Louise de Villemorin. Please welcome Annabel Lee.
Thank you, Tandy. This Browning Society is a very interesting organization. I've been to a few of their meetings, which happen at noon, and being a working person, I would dash from work over to the National Arts Club and hear really erudite talks on quite remarkable subjects. Louise de Villemorin has not had a book out in English since about sometime in the 60s when it was there was a collection put out in England. And this is the Gallimard edition that I've been translating from for a number of years, little by little. And I'm very fond of her. I had a back problem when I was quite young. She had tuberculosis when she was a teenager. And as a result, she walked with a limp. Now, I used to occasionally walk with a limp, but it might sound a little off topic, but it's one of the things that drew me to her and to understand something of what was going on with her. So she limped, and as a result, she always wore a floor-length skirt. And for that reason, I am evoking her. She also generally wore a very flamboyant shawl or scarf. I mean, no more flamboyant than this one is, in the sense that fabulous fabrics. She designed fabrics. She was an aristocrat. She had many wonderful affairs. And when I was a teenager, one of the most important books to me was La Condition Humaine, which I attempted to read in French, but of course I had to, at 14, 15 years old, I had to revert to reading it in the English, Man's Fate by André Malraux. When I learned that not only she had an affair with him, but he wrote an introduction to this collection and has written many times about her, did during their lifetimes, he was one of her greatest fans. And I just want to say one little, off the cuff, she had 3 children. She was married a couple of times, but mostly it was the affairs she had, one of which was with Orson Welles, also, another one of her people she was close to, shall I say. And one of the famous quotes from her is, "Tonight, I love you forever." And that was a fairly brief affair. But they also remained friends for a very long time. So here is a translation of a poem she calls Passionnément. First I will read it in the French. Je t'aime un peu, beaucoup, passionnément. Un peu c'est rare et beaucoup tout le temps. Passionnément et dans tout mouvement, il est caché sous ses un peu bien sage. Et dans beaucoup, il bat sous mon corsage. Passionnément, ne dors pas davantage que mon amour au pied de mon amant et que ma lèvre en baisant son visage. Passionately, I love him just a little, enough, passionately. Just a little is rare, and enough all the time. Passionately is in every movement. It's hidden under this. Just a little? Very true, and in enough, it beats under the corsage I wear. Passionately doesn't sleep more than my love at the feet of my lover, and not more than my lip while kissing his face. I didn't think her words were going to bring any tears to my eyes. Those who have heard me read from my novel about a couple of Italian kids growing up on Mott Street, which is what really brings me here because of Tom DeGidio, who was the first of these readers I met and who introduced me to the other two. Whenever I read about those kids, I always burst out crying just because I love my imaginary characters so much. Could try to hold it together here. Whoop. Set the timer. I put it in place to set it. Rhymes of the Heart. I will read this one just in English. It's a little longer. When time passed so quickly, nothing was left to wait for patiently. I didn't have time to think about it, nor to make an agreement. I took all and gave all. Each pleasure, each despair found words to make it less poignant. Rhymes of the heart beneath the entanglements. The forest understood the desire and wept, so I would be more pleasing. I took laughter in its season when it came in avalanches. When the jasmines with their white skin were opening, perfumed with irrationality, I accepted the comparison. It would be good if I was good, better if I would pretend to be. The vow that you tell no one, awakened by the call of peacocks, sing at the remorse that steadily hums. Snow falls. Off we go in the sleigh. I'll go out for a walk. The snow ennobles my coat. I am the queen of the nomads in my 4-horsepower bed. I am the queen lacking traditions who knows all the old games. Words were my disguise, and the moon my little dog, jealous of a star that illuminates it. With a tear at the edge of my eyelids, I must continue my journey. Beautiful chateau, keep your profile. To embroider your characters, I take my needle and my thread. Joy is a cripple who walks with a limp like I do. He doesn't have a solid shoulder, but I know what I owe him. My heart is full, my hands are empty. You can see why I just fell in love with this woman. I mean, her life is, she's an adventurer, you know, and mostly an adventurer in love. She lived in a chateau, as she mentioned here, which was her family's chateau, passed down through many generations. The family made seeds, or packaged seeds for farmers all over France. So they were just billionaires, And she was the one who was left the chateau. Her sister did not. I recently found out that a good friend of mine met her and knew her sister quite well. Louise died in 1969. So, it's not so long ago. Officers of the White Guard. Maybe I'll just read this one in French if you don't mind. Officiers de la Garde Blanche. Officiers de la Garde Blanche, gardez-moi de certaines pensées la nuit. Gardez-moi des corps à corps et de l'appui d'une main sur la hanche. Gardez-moi surtout de lui qui par la manche m'entraîne vers le hasard des mains pleines et les ailleurs d'eau qui luit. Épargnez-moi les tourments en tourmente, de l'aimer un jour plus qu'aujourd'hui, et la froide moiture des attentes qui presseront aux vitres et aux portes. Mon profil de dame déjà morte, officier de la garde blanche, je ne veux pas pleurer pour lui. Sur terre, je veux pleurer en pluie. Sur sa terre, sur son astre orne de buis, lorsque plus tard je planerai transparente au-dessous des 100 pas d'ennui, officier des consciences pures, vous qui faites les visages beaux, confiez dans l'espace au vol des oiseaux, un message pour les chercheurs de mesures et forgez pour moi des chaînes sans anneaux. Actually, that's Pondu. That was interesting. I was rewriting her as I read it. Un message pour les chercheurs de mesures et forger pour nous des chaînes sans anneaux. And I needed to read at least one of those slightly longer ones because you heard the rhymes. She rhymes miraculously. I don't rhyme in my translations. It would just make the whole thing impossible. Officers of the White Guard. Officers of the White Guard, protect me from certain thoughts at night. Guard me, troops, guard my body, and guide me with a hand on my upper thigh. Guard me totally from him who leads me by the sleeve toward the chance of having my hands full and elsewhere where water glistens. Save me from the difficulties of being tormented by loving him just one more day after today, and the cold moisture of those attempts to press my face against the windows and against the door, the face of a woman already dead. Officers of the White Guard, I don't want to cry for him on earth. I want to cry with rain falling onto the earth, on his star ornamented with boxwood. Until much later, I will hover transparent over the 100 steps of boredom. Officers of clear consciences, you who made faces beautiful, confide a message in the space where birds are in flight for those who yearn to take action, and forge for us chains without rings. So those chains are not for me alone. Those chains are for all of us. We should be free from whatever those awful relationships are. With the clear conscience business, she was very much criticized. Being an aristocrat, she was very much criticized for some of the aspects of her lifestyle. Born in, 1902? So part of her life, besides having her chateau out in the country, she was living in the English embassy in France because she was having an ongoing affair with the English ambassador, Duff Cooper, and lived with him and his wife, Lady Diana Cooper, as a threesome. So not only some of the other affairs, but that in particular, which was very visible because they all were going out to all the society business, and you can imagine. What I saw more than a goodbye wake up in the morning. I saw more than a white stone in my path. I saw among the brambles and among the plantain leaves more than a lost profile, more than an extinguished gaze, and more than an arm, the night that was straining the branches of me. By the calm and the rain and the gust of wind, I saw words that accompanied a kiss going by. I saw those kisses that take themselves to a convent, and in the flow of the lakes where the time goes by. Waking, I saw more than a drowning man. Thus, I escaped the countryside. I saw all my regrets move closer to my future. Love abandons me for something different. My heart, poorly judged, brings me back from far away, and inside me, this heart remains to assault my restraint. These hands, these eyes, these arms that life passed through, such intense profiles, don't weigh more than an ounce. I see them again in the shadow and the tree and the plantain leaves, and I see my destiny in the intertwining of the brambles. Thank you. My corpse is soft like a glove. My corpse is soft like a glove, soft like a glove made of icy cold skin, and the worn out pupils in my eyes make my eyes into white pebbles. 2 white pebbles are part of my face, part of the silence of 2 silent ones, still darkened by a secret and heavy with the dead weight of images. My fingers led astray so many times are joined in a holy attitude, pressed against the hollowness of my complaints, in the knot of my stopped heart. And my 2 feet are the mountains, the last 2 peaks that I saw at the moment where I lost the race that the years won. My memory holds a good likeness. Children quickly carry it away. Go go on. My life story's been told. My corpse is soft like a glove. Pardon me? I think I can be heard. This guy. This is a crazy guy, but we'll get that later. If Tandy can hear me, I can be heard. Mr. Givens. She was a Roman Catholic. She was French, and you might have heard a little bit in these works so far. There's a long poem of hers called My Aunt, and I'm not going to read it, but one day you will. But it reminds me what I wanted to tell you all, that today is the anniversary of my aunt's birth. There's someone who's here who I know because of my aunt. She would have been 99, and she meant a lot to me. And as I was reading that poem, it reminded me of her, because when I was born, my father said, of my infant self, she has Hallie's hands. And when I look at my feet, I see my aunt's feet. And I've reflected on that as I've been doing research about my aunt and, delving more into her life. And I feel like Louise, in her, being what we'd call a gimp, always with the limp, always that handicap. I think her hands and her feet, looking at them, and the photographs of her, incredible hand gestures. Anyway, so this will be my last poem for tonight. Prayer. Lord, come to my rescue, reach toward me with your hand so expansive that it gives shelter to lovers, to oceans, to mountain peaks, to earth, to the eternal and to our days. Reach out to me, Lord. It took just one of your fingers to put me here. Lead me far from here, away from all that abandons me, and far from the risks I've taken. Pull me out of the river. Guide me on the path that leads to the heart of prayer. Reach out to me with your great hand from the place where night and the light emerge. Everything is too close and too far away from me. My heart is dead. My soul weeps. Time doesn't bring me any more hours. The beating of my heart is faint beneath a step that leaves my home. I've exhaled the last breath. Lord, listen to the prayer of someone who would like to sleep. Lower my red eyelids for the long sleep of death. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Annabel. So next, we're going to hear from the poet Roberto Mendoza Ayala. He publishes Mexican and U.S. poets in bilingual editions with his Dark Light Publishing Company. And that includes one of tonight's participating poets, Robert Kramer. Roberto's own last collection is Palabras de Contortillas. Forgive my non-existent Spanish, which translates as Unknown Words, published by Darklight, Mexico City and New York City. He will read his translations of some Mexican poets with whom he's closely associated. So please welcome Roberto Mendoza Ayala.
Thank you. Okay, thanks to the Browning Society, James Kepler, thanks to Claudia Cerea, who promotes the National Translation Month, thanks to my friends who invited me to have this reading, and thanks to Art Gatti, my friend and partner in Dark Light. the translations of these books, the Darlight Publishing, wouldn't be possible without the valuable help of Arthur Gatti. He's practically the heart. So we'll read some of the poems in English by Art Gatti. I want to start with a poet, a Mexican poet, who is a woman. She wrote this book, In the Fire of Time. She's from Michoacán, Mexico, and she writes wonderful poems about the volcanoes, about the Mexican places, rural places, country places, and about love, about religion, but religion in a profound way. I'm going to read, it was in fact the first book that I translated from Spanish into English, and I'm going to read, I'm going to read first in English, just to set the meaning, and after that I will read in Spanish. This first poem from her, María Ángeles Juárez, it's called Dolce Poison, sweet poison. Dolce is an Italian word. Sweet poison. I went to meet you crossing over the morning between a halo of mist and rising sun, uninhabited by mornings. To its power of ice and fire, I cast out February's suffering voices. There you were, dolce poison in your eyes, potion transfigured into sounds of clear water, looseness of light in silent crescendos. In the middle of dreams, luggage on board, ready to steer through the madness of corporeal blood festivals with an appetite for renewed carnivals. And confident of your love, I ventured into the glory of knowing in your voice how to call you when alone, of having on my lips rare anthems of love when we meet. I'm going to read this now in español. Dolce veneno, fui a tu encuentro traspasando la mañana entre un halo de bruma y sol naciente. Deshabitada de lutos, arrojé a sus poderíos de hielo y fuego dolientes voces de febrero. Allí estabas, dolce veneno en tus ojos, bebedizo transfigurado en sonidos de agua clara, sueltos de luz en mudos crescendos, a mitad de los sueños, equipaje a bordo, pronto a navegar desvaríos en las fiestas corpóreas de la sangre con la apetencia de renovados carnavales. Y cierta de tu amor, me aventuré a la gloria de saber en tu voz la forma de nombrarte a solas, de el haber en mis labios raras antífonas de amor cuando nos vemos. Thank you. The second poem of this poet is No Trains on the Tracks, and the thing is, like, it's a very long question. It's a question. All of the poem is a question. So it's a question on 20 lines or something, but it's a whole question. I'm going to read it in English. It has an epigraph by a philosopher, Esperanza Zambrano. The name of the poem is No Trains on the Tracks. the epigraph. In measuring the coming kilometers and miles, I extend my arms like two long rails, so that you come back to me before you leave by the black roads where the days die. And the poem starts, who would have thought that on this long avenue that lost its memory at the edge of town on a Tuesday of sparse rain, I would walk alone, dragging sadness between the tracks when my beloved ones were gone beyond the docks and the last convoy churned farewells in the shady August of Lake Pátzcuaro. Now, in español, the poem is called No Trains on the Tracks, Sin Trenes por las Vías. The epigraph. Midiendo los kilómetros y las millas que llegan, yo viendo los brazos como dos largas vías, para que a mí regreses antes de haber marchado por los caminos negros en que mueren los días. ¿Quién iba a pensar por esta larga avenida que extravió su memoria a la salida del pueblo, un martes de lluvia rala, caminaría sola arrastrando tristeza entre las vías cuando los míos se fueron más allá de los muelles y el último convoy batió a dioses en agostos turbios del lago de Pátzcuaro? Okay, thank you. Now I want to read the second poet. He's Víctor M. Navarro. His book is Syllables on Hold, en español, sílabas detenidas. And he's a very well known poet in Mexico. He had a radio station in Querétaro, Mexico, and he invited many writers. He knows all of the writers in Mexico, and he loves books. He has an immense library at home, and he loves books. And he wrote, he loves many poets, not only Mexican, but he reads in translations. He reads French poets. He reads American poets like Ray Bradbury. And he dedicates a poem to Ray Bradbury. And this is his poem from Víctor M. Navarro. Ray Bradbury Dixit. Here lies and is born Ray. Here, Bradbury loves life because he is a poet. He lives forever. He is out civilization and what we learn. He is the most extensive library of life. He is the love of life and its volumes, forever to open and read one of his pages. You become him, and he becomes each one of us. He teaches you to love life, books, and because of this, to love mankind in the greatest act of possible justice. Reading makes us all equal. Love makes us readers of equality, of life, and of knowing others. Full existence only depends on a truth. Love what you do and do what you love. Equal to equals. Best fight is the labor of love. The love of neighbor supports what you read and write. Best fight is by thought, reflection, writing. We love what we write. We write what we love. Man is the center of the letter, writing and life. Love those who like yourself. love life, love books, love writing. Now, en español, Ray Bradbury Dixit, the same title. Aquí yace y nace Ray, aquí Bradbury ama la vida, porque es un poeta, vive para siempre, es nuestra civilización, y lo que aprendemos es la biblioteca más enorme de la vida, es el amor a la vida y la biblioteca. Por siempre al abrir y leer una de sus páginas, te convierte en él, y él se convierte en cada uno de nosotros. Te enseña a amar la vida, los libros, y con esto a los hombres en el mayor acto de justicia posible. La lectura nos vuelve a todos iguales. El amor nos vuelve lectores de igualdad, de la vida y el conocer a los demás. El existir pleno solo depende de una verdad. Ama lo que haces y haz lo que amas, igual a los iguales. La mejor lucha es el trabajo por amor. El amor al prójimo sustenta lo que lees y escribes. La mejor lucha es por medio del pensamiento, la reflexión, la escritura. Amamos lo que escribimos, escribimos lo que amamos. El hombre es el centro de letra, la escritura y la vida. Ama a los que como tú aman la vida, aman los libros, aman la escritura. The next poem from Víctor M. Navarro is Odysseus Remastered. He imagines, he writes very well about his neighborhood. He lives in Tacubaya. Tacubaya is a popular neighborhood in Mexico City. And he writes about he lived in shanty towns, and he imagines Odysseus being part of trying to come back to a shanty town, and this is the poem. Odysseus remastered. The muses meet in a glow on a fire. The sonorous voices of heralds sing the adventure of love on the hills of existence. The poet discovers in the shanty town his neighborhood's muse, a love surrounded by minions and 2 or 3 local thugs. Like Ulysses, the one with the verbiage, he is not intimidated in battle. Every day, the 5th patio is all songs and battles in between, and he sails to his Ithaca, to tender lips like palace juice. Never lifeless, he tastes the sweetened voice of the one that fills him with all life. There are cyclops, spears, and mermaids seeking to stop his journey, but the warrior knows his love is praying for his return. Thank you. En español, Odiseo remasterizado. Las musas salen al encuentro de un resplandor, de un incendio. Los heraldos de voz sonora cantan la aventura del amor en las colinas de toda existencia. El poeta descubre en la vecindad a la musa de su barrio, el amor rodeado de esbirros y 2 o 3 matones de la colonia, como Ulises, el del palabrerío. No se amedrenta en la batalla. A diario el 5º patio son canciones y batallas de por medio y navega a su Ítaca. Tiernos labios como jugo de palacio, nunca exánime, prueba la voz edulcorada de aquella que le llena toda vida. Son lanzas, cíclopes y sirenas que buscan detener su viaje, pero el guerrero sabe que su amor está recitando su regreso. Thank you. Now I want to invite my friend Art Gatti to read a poem, and yes,
Who are we reading?
from the.
Oh, the Black Cat, right.
We made this, translated this book, all of the others too, but this is a well-known Mexican poet. He has won many prizes, and he wrote, is his latest book. It's about cinema, and we are going to read about Rita Acevedo Gomez, who is a film director, Brazilian. The writer, the poet, admires Rita Acevedo Gomez, and he wrote a poem about her.
Okay, very good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Color or black and white? The women you see manifest their beauty when they walk barefoot. I would not know how to capture that poetry that precedes writing. Images that Rita Azevedo Gomez sets in our pupils. And you, cinephile, why don't you take your glass stilettos off and discover the smoothness of the polished floor? Or do you imitate those feet, beautiful as white lions, in Fragile as the World, that take their high heels off to go out to step on the grass? Foreground scenes. After chasing the bare heels of Rita Morao in La Portuguesa through a long obsessive frame, I become another. Did you notice the silver fish of the Lusitanian queen? Let us contemplate frame by frame such celluloid's poetry.
Thank you. Thank you, Art. Thank you very much.
Now, Roberto, I'm going to ask you the same question I did the last guest, so no one feels special. I can bring another mic if you want, and we can hook it up, I think, through the sound system. You want to try it? Mm-hmm. Yeah? This is recording perfectly to the video. Mm-hmm. What do you think, guys? You want more sound, or everything sounds okay?
Sound is good now? Okay.
Just
Maybe for the, yes. En español, this last poem, encuadres de Rita Acevedo Gómez. A color o en blanco y negro, las mujeres que ves manifiestan su belleza cuando van descalzas. Yo no sabría cómo plasmar esa poesía anterior a la escritura. Imágenes que Rita Acevedo Gómez coloca en nuestras pupilas. Y tú, cinéfila, ¿por qué no te quitas los estiletos de cristal y descubres la lisura del suelo pulido? ¿O imitas aquellos pies bellos como leones blancos, en frágil como el mundo, que se desprenden de los tacones para salir a pisar la hierba? Escenas en primeros planos. Después de perseguir los talones desnudos de Rita Morao en La Portuguesa, en un largo encuadre obsesivo me transformé en otro. ¿Te fijaste en los peces plateados de la reina lusitana? Contemplemos cuadro por cuadro esa poesía de celuloide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is now when we're supposed to have intermission? Yeah. All right. I don't think we can take too long, maybe 15 minutes, but if you go around the corner, we've got some wine and cheese and grapes. Thank you so much for organizing all that, Tom. But then we'll continue after with the second half.